Good morning everybody and welcome to Lochmaben Castle, the first castle we've visited in Scotland together. It's very eerie, it's very foggy, there's stories of kings and queens and vampires and ghosts. Let us tell you all about them. Well, I think I'll be doing the telling, but my glamorous assistant will be helping with the filming. So Lochmaben Castle, it's next to a big loch. There's a big lake just down here. It's like on a bit of a peninsula sticking out into the loch. Now there's been a fort of some kind here since the 1200s. And the grandfather of King Robert I, he died here in 1295. So it comes from a really famous Scottish background of family people. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Now the story goes that Robert the Bruce, not his grandfather, not the grandfather, he was called Robert Bruce. This is Robert the Bruce, the Robert the Bruce. Everyone's heard of Robert the Bruce. They reckon he was born here, yep, back in 1274, but there is a place called Dumfriesshire Castle who claims the same thing. So somebody's lying, we don't know who. Let's just, because we're here, let's just say this is where Robert the Bruce was born. Right, then the battles started, the English and the Scottish. Edward I, King of England, he came over and he took this castle in 1298. And then Robert Bruce, he wanted it back because this was his family's, his granddad's castle, if you like. So he tried to take it back, and that was in 1299. He didn't manage to do it. He failed. But then he managed to do it in 1306. So Robert the Bruce got this back for the Scottish and for his family. But then, it just gets stupid. It gets really stupid, does this. And then Edward II, I don't know if that's King Edward I's dad, I don't know. Edward II, he retook it for the English. But then the Scots got it back. It's just stupid. They're just all bickering over these bits of bricks. I don't understand why. That were in 1333, so the Scots have got it again now. And then the English retook it again. You know, why don't they just share it? They could have, like, Scots at one end, English at other end, and had parties on a weekend, a little nightclub, and just joined together and had fun. All this fighting, and I bet people died. So the English have got it, but along comes Archibald the Grim. He was the Lord of Galloway. That's not far away. You've got Dumfriesshire and Galloway. It's like a county on type of thing. He came along, this lord, and in 1384 he took it. There were a 9-day siege. He took this off the English and he burnt the place to the ground. But that wasn't the end of Lochmaben Castle. They turned it into stone. They built it again, made it out of stone, and this is where you get some famous people coming along now. Very famous people indeed. Kings and queens. We've got, it was in the late 15th or early 16th century. That's when they built it in stone, all right? During the reign of James IV. He was King of Scotland. When it was completed, just bear with me, yeah? It was used as a base by James V. Now, whether that was James IV's son, I don't know. I'm not that clued up on history. I'll find out on a later date and tell you in another video. Anyway, Mary Queen of Scots, she popped over here once. They've all been here having, you know, just sitting down, having cups of tea, looking over the loch, which you can't see today because it's too foggy. Kings and queens and lords and everything. It's a really special Scottish castle, and no one's here. It's just dead. So that were in 1565. Mary Queen of Scots came with Lord Darnley. You know, I think she were her lover or her second husband or something. They came here, and then James the Sixth, he demolished it. He seized it in 1588 and he demolished it. So in 1603, that's when England and Scotland joined together. They got on, they became friends. And this place, it was useless after that. What good's a castle if we're not fighting against the English? What's the point in having this castle if we can't fight the Scottish? So they didn't want it. Nobody wanted it. So it just fell into ruins by the end of that century, and all the stones, people just kept stealing them to build farms and houses nearby, which I don't know where they are, because honestly there's one farm and it's about a mile that way and there's nothing else for miles. So if they've taken stone from here to build other buildings, they must have walked a long way with a lot of stones. So if you'd like to have a quick look around, you can see that it's all ruinous now. You've just got bits sticking up and fences all around. There's a lot of it which is off limits because it's a bit dangerous. It doesn't look very dangerous to me, but that's what they're saying. So they've fenced a lot of it off for your safety. But you can get in the grounds, you can see some bits of it, and it's all right. I would highly recommend coming just because a queen and a king and Robert the Bruce and all them famous people have stood right here. Okay, Mazzy, we've got some stories you're going to like.
Woohoo!
You like vampires and ghosts, don't
Yes.
you? Okay. 1991, all the locals got in touch with a guy called Tom Robinson, who was a very well-known ghost hunter in Scotland. And they said, Tom, come up here. We're finding animal carcasses all over in the woods around the castle, and we want to know what's causing it. So, along came Tom. In his car, and he parked up and he went into the woods, and 15 feet away from him, that's not far, that's like from there to there. It was very, very close to a, well, he described it as a decomposing corpse. It sounds like, what do you call them people, them zombies? Sounds like zombie apocalypse. Zombies. It sounds like a bit like zombies. He saw a zombie 15 feet away from him. Now, he described it, he said, its face was as grey as granite, a bit like mine. The eyes as black as coal. The skin seemed transparent except for the purple veins protruding from the creature's dead, withering tissue. This is what he said. It was tall but round-shouldered, and a hood which pulled over its head, dressed in sacking. He had a big sack on. You can imagine it, can't you? A big zombie, decomposing, purple-veined, hoodie type zombie. It'd be scary, 15 feet away from him. And he reckoned this is what must have been eating all the corpses, all the animals. Tom was probably in this very spot and he pooped. He literally pooped. And in his head he thought, vampire, it's a vampire. And as soon as he said vampire, this creature started jumping up in the trees and from branch to branch and out into the distance. Tom pooped. He was terrified. Didn't come back, never wanted to come back, but he did 8 years later. So it was 8 years later. Tom came and he started camping. It was nearly dawn, he'd seen nothing, and dawn was just about to come up, and just in the distance he could see it again, the vampire. Now, he said on this occasion, it was stooped over like a hunchback, so it, like that. And remember, it's got its veins and stuff, and its skin coming off and grey, and a hoodie. It must have been really scary. He said it stopped and turned its head towards him, and it glared at me with evil intensity. This grotesque beast looked like it had crawled out of the grave. Now this is where the story gets truly amazing. You're going to love this. A journalist printed the story about what Tom had seen here, right? And in America, this journalist piece was in all the papers in America. Now in 2002, Tom got a telephone call. So Tom answered the phone in 2002. It was going ring, 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 and he picked it up, put it up to his ear, and it was somebody, a very effeminate voice on the other end, saying, "Hello there, I've just read your article." Well, it was effeminate, wasn't it? "Hello, I just read your article about the vampire, and I'm wondering if you could catch it alive for me." And Tom says, "Who on earth is this?" And the line went dead. Right? And he had to think about it. He thought, I've heard that voice before. I know that voice. Whose voice is that? He thought about it for a while, and do you know who it was? Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson wrung your face then. Her face. You're shocked, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're shocked. It was Michael Jackson on the phone because he wanted him to catch the vampire because he'd heard of Michael Jackson that vampire, if you have a vampire, it has eternal life. And he was trying to have eternal life. Everyone knows Michael Jackson wanted to live forever. So he wanted to catch the vampire to find out how he could live forever. Woohoo! Ooh! Unbelievable, isn't it? It's true. That was my attempt at a moonwalk. I didn't do it very well. Never could. Anyway, he didn't catch the vampire. He didn't get it to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson died, as we all know. So there is a vampire legend here which dates back to the 12th century, and they reckon it could come from the Bruce family, the very powerful Bruce family of Scotland, believing that one of their members of their clan was bitten back in the 1200s and roams around today as a vampire. There's also another little story as well. You've got to listen out for horses' hooves, you know, like a cloppity, 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 clop. It's not one-legged, they have 4 legs. What's that? Cloppity, 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 cloppity. And a drumming noise. So you've got to listen out for horses' hooves and a drummer boy. Well, I'm saying a boy, it could be a man, I don't know. Drumming noises and horses' hooves, clippity, clippity, cloppity, clippity, clop, clop. And look out for vampires. It's a very haunted place. It's had lots of kings, lots of queens. We've loved it here. I've loved it here. Did you like the stories?
The stories are great.
The stories are great. The
Yeah.
place itself, what do you think?
Cold, dreary and...
Cold, dreary, depressing.
Yeah.
It feels depressing, doesn't it?
Very eerie.
Very eerie, very foggy. And the scaffolding around it does spoil it a bit.
Yeah.
But it's worth coming just for that history. You never know, you might see the vampire. So, just quickly give it marks out of 10, please.
6.
6 out of 10. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10, simply because of the kings and queens who've been here and Michael Jackson wanting
Yeah,
the
that was
vampire.
good.
That were cool. So thank you for joining us, guys, here at Lochmaben Castle. Get yourselves here, it's worth the journey. Say goodbye, Mazzy.
Bye, Mazzy.
Oh, I hate when people do that. I hate it when people do that. This is a professional documentary.
Oh, don't be so...
Trying to be serious here, and she's doing kiddies, crankies, and... Oh, and she's skipping now. Yeah, cut, cut, cut.